Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to do a quick video talking about keyboard placement. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of your keyboard placement, how I place my keyboard, and overall we'll talk about a little bit about wrist health. Some of the positions I honestly am going to say that I'm no health professional, but are probably not really good for your wrist, but we're going to talk about some of those ways that you see pros especially play at an angle like so. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about my placement and talk about the pros and cons. So let's start off with a standard way that somebody has essentially their keyboard. And I have keyboard in frame, obviously, and you're going to notice that I'm missing one of these. One of my cats knocked it off. I don't remember when. It went to the straight abyss, but nonetheless, I still use this keyboard, so that's good. Let's talk about keyboard placement. So the most standard, obviously, with keyboard mostly in frame, is just, you have your keyboard pretty much horizontal to your mouse, and I have it on the mouse pad. You see the downside to this. I'm going to move my camera a little bit over to the left over here. I have that there, and obviously if I move over to the right, you're going to see how much placement, or I guess arm span, you're going to need to achieve this. I guess when you're head on, it's really not that big of a deal, but for me personally, what I started doing over the years is I started moving my keyboard more at an angle. So I had more room for my mouse and everything that I wanted to do with it. So because I was playing more at an angle, I was achieving more, I guess. And of course, what I usually use is with a keyboard, I have like an armrest, and I kind of bang my camera there. But I normally have like a armrest here for my overall keyboard and setup. That's usually what I do for my setup. And I'll kind of talk through that in just a hot second. If I want to cut things out, I'm going to try to do all this all in one take, but if I ramble or anything, I'm going to cut it out. So I will apologize if we go back and forth. I'm unscripted, but I really wanted to have this conversation one-on-one with you, as if you were in the room with me, just kind of talking about keyboard placement. So why do pros put their keyboard also at an angle? So again, it's so they have their, and I'm going to show you ideally what I do with my setup and why I play at more of an angle. Normally when I play is I even move I sit more at an angle, and I move my mouse pad, as you can see, at an angle. So I move my keyboard perpendicular like this, and I move like a little armrest. I use like a cloth. It's hard to use an armrest for the G915 keyboard, partly because it's a low profile keyboard, which is, I guess, is a good thing and a bad thing, kind of depending. But then of course you play at this angle here like so. Again, the downside to this is obviously it puts unnecessary strain on your wrist here. So there is that downside to it. There's just less comfort, but the benefit of why individuals, especially in the first-person shooter scene, utilize that is just mostly so they have more room for their hands. So I'm going to move my camera a little bit this way. You can kind of see. But you'll notice if I'm sitting at an angle how much area that I have, and of course if I don't have a large arm span, then that's going to massively benefit you, so then you can aim. The downside again is that this feels very uncomfortable for your wrist. I've seen even players go full on with this, and they'll play completely horizontal with their keyboard. Also a plus side, but you'll notice the reason why is that if you were to play at an angle and you were to say, you know what, I want to play horizontal, then I guess depending where your shoulder and where you sit, you run into a bit of an issue. Move my camera that way. You can kind of see it. So this is really, it all comes down to personal preference, but I really highly recommend you focus on your wrist health, because moving your keyboard at such an angle like so feels very, very uncomfortable, but you see a lot of pros do that. So you'll even see them move their whole arm, and they'll bring the keyboard pretty close to their chest, and you'll see them play like this. They have WASD. All full control, and they'll have the key binds all up here. But the plus side is that it really allows your shoulder, the shoulder right here, no longer is like spread out this way as much, and you're more honed in on everything that's right in front of you. And of course, we talked about it, and I booped my camera there. We talked about it, compared to playing horizontal, is that the plus side, when you're trying to move left, and you can do this even from your own desk as you're watching this video, you're less likely to hit your keyboard. It kind of gives you equal spacing on both angles whenever you're aiming and your mouse. So you get the full mouse pad. Otherwise, you get the overlap there, and if you don't want the overlap, then your WASD is going to be a literally mile away. Which again, that's not a bad thing. It just kind of depends on your arm span and how far away you want your left hand to be compared to your right. And it depends on your desk space, because essentially if you have your keyboard all the way over there, you're going to need quite a big desk. So even in the Quake days, sometimes people would have their keyboards underneath their desk compared to having it actually on their desk, because you know, back then, especially on LAN, you didn't really necessarily have a lot of space. So when you think about LAN centers and everything, when you're playing tournaments in LAN, you don't necessarily have the luxury of space, so you have to kind of get creative with what you have. And so obviously when you think of, I have this confined space and I want to maximize on my space for my mouse and my mouse pad, you start to get clever and start to cut corners. You start to say, you know, let me put this here, let me do that there, and then there you go, that's comfortable. Obviously you want to practice proper wrist health, so you know, arm rest. I'm using a cloth right now to kind of help you with the bottom of your wrist here, but the issue that you run into whenever you're playing with perpendicular again is this part of the hand. So it's kind of hard to recommend it, honestly. I've done it for several years. It took me a few months to get comfortable with it, but I definitely did it because I wanted more space, and it just started to feel a lot better, especially when I was playing first-person shooters and hitting certain keybinds, because it does give you a little bit more ease of access as well, compared to if you're trying to hit certain keybinds, compared to if it was this way. It's a lot easier to hit them. So that's also why you see individuals utilize their keyboard in that fashion. But again, a quick little video talking about keyboard placement and some pros and cons of it. I know it's a little straightforward, but again, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Hopefully this video is helpful for somebody out there. Feel like I can possibly do it a bit better, but you know, based on your feedback, let's kind of talk through it and see what you guys think. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.